Welcome to Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. Happy Hump Day. Boy, it's been quite a week, hasn't it? We've had, they're like, the jury is deliberating in Hunter Biden's trial. Oh, wait. Hours later, the jury comes back. Hunter Biden's found guilty. We really were not planning for this. And now, of course, today, the House voted late this afternoon 216 to 207 to hold U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for refusing to turn over the audio recordings of Joe Biden's interviews with former special counsel Robert Hur, who, of course, was the one who investigated Biden's handling of the classified documents and material, declined to bring charges, even though he did say, well, I mean, he seemed pretty forgetful. He seemed like an elderly old man. And I only think that a jury would be, would feel sorry for him. Not that he didn't do anything wrong. Just, I mean, yeah, he did it, but he seems to not be well. And I don't think that would play well with a jury. Now, just to tell you guys who you need to send emails to and call, Representative Dave Joyce of Ohio, we are told, Republican, voted against holding Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. So if that is your Congressman, I suggest you get on the phone and let him know how you feel about that. So now that they voted to hold him in contempt, House Speaker Mike Johnson will certify the report to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. And under law, this then requires the U.S. attorney to bring the matter before the grand jury for its action. But the Justice Department will have its own day with that. So I want to welcome to the show. I'm so excited that we finally got her on. It's been so long since I've talked to her, Representative Paulina Luna of Florida, who we're kind of twinning right now, Anna. You look lovely as always. And tell me, I know our viewers know this is filmed a little bit in advance of when the show airs. And so you literally just walked off the floor from voting. Correct. Yeah, we just voted to hold Garland in criminal contempt. That's great. And so give us what was it like on the floor? Was it heated? Give us sort of the inside scoop. Yeah, I think leadership has been working on really making this argument to the delegation. And so I think we knew that it was going to pass. I've been saying that it's going to pass for some time now. Obviously, when you have someone that defies blatantly two subpoenas, that I think Republicans know, especially right now with Americans realizing that there is a two-tier justice system, that we have to do something. And I'm sorry, but angry letters and these paper tigers are simply not sufficing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very happy that my colleagues voted to hold him accountable. But, I don't think that the American people or we even really have faith in the Department of Justice. And so starting today, actually, the DOJ has until June 25th to basically hold Garland accountable. Otherwise, I will be bringing up my vote to hold him in inherent contempt of Congress, and we'll do it ourselves. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that was exactly what I was going to ask you about. Mm-hmm. So tell the viewers how that differs from the contempt resolution. Yeah, so there's basically two types of contempt of Congress. A lot of people don't talk about inherent contempt because it was something that I think really the House of Representatives forgot that they could do, because it hasn't really been done since the early 1900s. But there is case law for it. And so we know that we are operating within the bounds of not only our constitutional authority, but also to remember, Garland defied not just one, but two subpoenas. And there's a lot of people getting in trouble right now for defying subpoenas from the sham January 6th committee. So if they set the precedents, we're simply following exactly what they've done. And so what I will say is what we just did in Congress is we really filed in criminal contempt, which means that it will be going to the Department of Justice to hold Garland accountable. Now, I think it's become very clear that the Department of Justice tends to be soft, especially on appointees. And so I don't really have faith. I don't think the American people have faith that the Department of Justice will be holding him accountable. And you're seeing that Garland is starting to sweat because of his responses. He's trying to say that this is partisan weaponization, which is ironic and laughable, because that that's been happening to Trump as well as Trump allies over the last couple of years. But also, too, remember, if they don't do it, we will. And so what we've done is we filed inherent contempt of Congress. Again, hasn't been done since the early 1900s. It is a privilege resolution, meaning that I can bring it to the floor at any time. I can call up that vote, is kind of the slang that we use for it. But what it will do is it will allow the House of Representatives to essentially become the punitive arm instead of the Department of Justice. And so it empowers the Speaker to direct the Sergeant at Arms to order Garland to appear. And if he decides to not appear, essentially that they can go get him and force him to produce that evidence, which would be those recordings. And remember, the American people should note that it is not a laughing matter that it is very likely that Biden is not cognitively there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we have an election
election. But more importantly, he's controlling, one, if we go to war, he's controlling our negotiations. He's supposed to anyways. And ultimately, we don't have faith that he's able to execute that position. And obviously, I don't think that his cabinet will be impeaching him based on his influence peddling. So it is a very serious matter. And I think a lot of those moderate members did the right thing. I applaud them for that. And I'm going to be sending them a letter to ask them to be voting on inherent contempt of Congress if the DOJ does not do their jobs starting now, 10 days.
Yeah, it's very suspicious to me that if we do have the transcript and we already know what was said, why would you not release the tapes? What are you trying to hide? And of course, with this DOJ in particular, I mean, nothing is off the table, in my opinion. They've been so corrupt to, historic levels. I'm very suspicious of the fact that he won't just turn this over.
I think that it is telling that they are trying to say that there is executive privilege when that argument actually goes out the window the moment that they release these transcripts. Right. But more importantly, they don't have the authority to tell Congress what we can and cannot investigate or look into. And you are right. If there's nothing to hide, why are they being so shady about it? And so we need to hear those. They can make this go away really quickly, give us the recordings, and we will make sure that those have not been altered. But I think that they are concerned that those recordings, as you're seeing, they're trying to say that Republicans are going to be cutting this and using it for elections. Well, I don't think that if there was nothing shady on those recordings, they should be concerned about it. So clearly there is.
Right. I want to pivot while I have you and ask you about legislation that you are putting forward. I'll just read what you've said. Millions of Americans consume poisonous food dyes and sweeteners like high fructose corn syrup daily. I'm putting an end to that. I urge my colleagues to join me in this vital legislation. And I reposted this and I was like, my girl, speaking my language, something that I have been talking about for years. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so, up in Congress, we obviously have a lot of hats that we wear. But, one of the legislations that I've been very passionate about is really ensuring that all Americans, regardless of party affiliation or social class, have access to clean food. And what we're finding is even on some of these food stamp programs, which I don't know if you know my story, Sarah, which I think you do, but I actually grew up using food stamps. And, we are subsidizing government poison that's making some of the poorest people in our country sick. And ultimately, that contributes to more debt and also to shorter life expectancies, to infertilities. And really, I think the people that are being hurt the most are our children. And so what we're finding is a lot of these artificial food dyes that are banned, mind you, in a lot of countries like Australia and parts of Europe and in Asia are actually linked to cancer, infertility, ADHD, and it's really hurting our kids and hurting our people. And so what I'm trying to do is ensure that that's taken out of our food. I think it's pretty sick that a lot of corporations are taking the cheap way out and basically are serving up poison to our families. And so I'm trying to remove that. And so hopefully it'll be bipartisan. But in the event that it's not, I'm hoping that when President Trump is sworn back into office this upcoming election cycle, that he will give me a word and hopefully we'll get it passed then.
From your lips to God's ears there. I hope that this is kind of a step. It needs to happen, but I hope that this is also a step towards just completely upending the FDA, because at the end of the day, I mean, they're the ones who are allowing all of these toxic chemicals and food dyes and all of these to be put into, Americans' food. And like you said, there are a lot of families who don't know, don't understand. They're not educated about it. And so I was surprised. Go ahead.
Sorry, they can't even afford it. I mean, to eat organic or to eat just healthy, normal food is so expensive now, especially with inflation. It's unattainable and it's unaffordable. But I think, speaking to the FDA, this job has made me so critical of the FDA because I've actually sat there and interviewed them. And just to put it in perspective, look, I am a border hawk. I don't want illegal immigration, but let me tell you what the Biden administration did. And this just kind of goes to show how hypocritical this administration is, even with their own messaging. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, there was that big pull of infant formula from consumer shelves. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason why they were pulled is because during COVID, the FDA stopped inspecting the main manufacturing facility for all infant formula in the United States. Oh. And ultimately, what ended up happening is there was this massive outbreak of bacteria that actually causes death of 20% of infants that are exposed to it. So this was during COVID, so stay with me for a minute. So what ended up happening is they pulled this for American consumers by the time it was probably already too late. So we still don't know the amount of infants that were killed because of this outbreak. But then after that, mind you, these corporations are required to self-report. So no corporation is going to do that because it's going to impact their reports for sales. Well, then they took that infected formula and they sent it to the border facilities where migrant children were. So to put in
Golly.
perspective, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, that's awful. Listen, I appreciate you. We are cheering you from here at Sara Gonzales Unfiltered in Texas. You are like just a spitfire. I'm so happy that you are in Congress, and we appreciate your time so much. Come back soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk soon.